and welcome to a special edition of Sales TV, an honorary edition as we spotlight Mental Health Week in the UK this week. Our special edition is about tackling stress in sales with a growth mindset. And for those who don't know me, my name's Alex Abbott, otherwise known as the Bearded Sales Guy, and I'm joined by two lovely people. Lee, do you want to introduce yourself? Say a few words.
Yes, thank you, Alex, for having me on this special edition. I'm Lee Ashton, and I have a very long background in sales. Too many years to mention. And so I've seen many changes and transitions in the sector and have a big awareness because I work with large organisations developing growth mindset cultures. I've seen a big increase in the pressures on salespeople because sales has become so much more sophisticated than it was when I first went into it. So even though my focus is growth mindset in terms of increasing performance, the way through that is growth mindset so a person can be more at ease with themselves in order to do that performance. So, I'm going to talk a bit about that today.
Yeah, I'm going to look forward to that. There's definitely some great topics of discussion to be had there. Thank you, Lee, and Mr. Luke Bowles.
Yeah, I'm Luke Bowles. Nice to meet everyone. So my day job, I work for Consalia. I do business development for them, mainly in the apprenticeship space. So we're a sales education business. And what I focus on is our apprenticeship programs for early career salespeople and also senior salespeople as well. Alongside my work at Consalia, I host a 5 Ways to Wellbeing podcast. So anyone who's aware of mental health, they'll probably be aware of the 5 Ways to Wellbeing. It was a theory introduced by the New Economics Foundation. And then Mind, the charity, which everyone's heard of Mind. Mm-hmm. Mind really sort of picked it up and adopted it. And a lot of health organizations now use it as a framework to help people achieve positive mental well-being. And then alongside work, I do a bit in the voluntary sector as well for mental health. So I used to work with the NHS. I was a contracted volunteer with them. And that was in the early intervention service, which is for people who are diagnosed with psychosis. So usually people with bipolar, schizophrenia. And it's a service that sort of helps them address their needs early on. Because a lot of the research suggests if you kind of put it in layman's terms, you can nip it in the bud. Presently, I work as a trustee for a mental health charity called Elmore Community Services. And what they do is they help people with complex mental health needs. So the easiest way to define complex mental health needs is someone who has 2 diagnoses at the same time. So say for example, someone's got schizophrenia and they also suffer from addiction. So very involved with mental health. Personally, I've got bipolar, so that's kind of my inspiration for why I get involved in these sort of projects. So yeah, really happy to be joining you today, Alex and Lee.
Fantastic. I kind of feel like I need to do another intro after hearing you both. And Luke, that's fantastic. I didn't realize you did all of that. How do you have any time left in the day to do the day job?
Well, the volunteering work is usually sort of evenings and weekends.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I find that if you're passionate about something, you'll make time for it. So, I think making time for helping other people is actually really beneficial for myself. So I'll always make time for it. I think, you don't want to forget where you come from. I come from I've got a background where I've required those services in the past myself. So I think it's really important to give back. So I'll always make the time if it's important. And I guess that's how I make the time.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, perhaps we can come back to some of that, because before we went live, we were talking about cricket and how that plays a key part in your week, in your life. But before we kind of get going with the conversation, the topic really is about tackling stress in sales with a growth mindset. And because we're going to be talking about, I think, a variety of things related to that. Let's first, define a couple of things. So, when we say the word stress, it doesn't always mean negative things. I think from my perspective, stress can also be positive. It can help motivate me. But how do you guys feel about stress and defining stress? I don't know if you want to maybe have a go at tackling that first, Lee.
Yeah. Now, wherever you have growth, you will have some element of stress. And whenever you step out of your comfort zone to do something new, there will be physical responses to that will increase those stress chemicals in your body. So the secret to doing new things is to do them at a pace and in steps that are comfortable for the person, and you're only thinking about the first step. So I always say you don't need confidence for the whole journey. You just need confidence for the first step. Just decide what the first step is that you can manage, and just know that you are going to get some resulting anxiety when you do something new, because it's new, and that's your body's way of saying have all your senses on full alert so that you don't miss anything because you're doing something new. So whenever there is growth, there is a certain amount of stress. Yeah. So it's not to be feared. The issue is when the stress is too extreme. If you're being pushed too far out of your comfort zone without taking those steps, then the stress can actually cause paralysis, which means that it also creates bad memories of trying to do that thing, whatever that thing is. And therefore you are less likely to try and do it again in the future. So you need a certain level of stress to grow.
Yeah. And Luke, how do you define stress? What's your view on stress in sales?
Well, let's start with a definition. Why not? This is from the World Health Organization. Okay. Stress is a state of worry or mental tension caused by a difficult situation. So if we kind of break that down, you could say that sales is going to be a very stressful environment, because you're going to be presented with a number of difficult situations in your job. So I kind of think to myself, well, what's a really common difficult situation that I face? One of the key ones for me is performance against target. When I'm stressed, that's kind of what makes me overthink at night time. It starts to affect my sleep. I start to worry and have fear too much, because I don't think I've got the resources available to meet the target. So I think stress is common in sales, but what Lee points out is that stress can be a good thing. Without stress, we're not going to grow or stretch as an individual. Imagine what sales would be like if we didn't have targets. My first perception of what would my experience be if I didn't have a target, I would probably not work very hard, because I wouldn't have any challenge. So I would just bumble along. I'd think to myself, do I really want to do some cold prospecting? Something that my least favorite activity in sales. I've been doing it this week. I've been on LinkedIn sending cold messages to people. I don't like it because you get such a poor reply rate. I start to get anxious about what do people think of me. If I'm not getting replies, do they think I'm a rubbish salesperson and that sort of thing. So I think it's definitely important that we have, it's a requirement that we're going to be stressed in sales as a result of things like having sales targets. But if we link it back to the title of this podcast, can we tackle it with a growth mindset? I think it's all about the attitude that we take towards those challenges.
100%. Yeah, the two topics are so intrinsically linked, but I think the challenge for many is not having that growth mindset, therefore allowing the stress or the thing that's causing the stress to consume them, to take them down as opposed to up, positively. So what about a growth mindset then? So, we talk about this a lot in sales, and I think it's one of those things that could mean different things to different people. For example, Lee, yesterday we were talking about the difference between being optimistic or over optimistic and having a growth mindset.
Yeah.
How would we, how do you define what a growth mindset is, Lee?
In its most simplistic terms, a growth mindset, as opposed to a fixed mindset. So these are terms that were assigned by Carol Dweck. And if you don't know who Carol Dweck is, you can Google her. She's like the grandmother of growth mindset. And she initially did some research into how come some children learn really easily and some children really struggle to learn. And she's a professor at Stanford University, and in her research, she found that the children that learned really easily had something that she termed grit. And on further research, she uncovered a bit more that these children thought in a different way. So the growth mindset children would see mistakes as part of learning. They would see purposeful practice as a journey from not being able to do something to being able to do something. They would experience feedback from their teachers as an opportunity to get better. And so these children they can see the potential in themselves much more, whereas these children will be saying, well, I can't do maths. Like, I can't play a musical instrument. Nobody in my family has ever played a musical instrument. Yeah. And that's not me. I can't do that. And so that kept them stuck. But she also uncovered in her research that if you praise children too much, like, you're amazing, you're really a genius, then that can also have a detrimental effect, because it can cause children not to tackle things that they think they might fail at. So even though they might initially be like growth mindset and they're doing great things, if you use that kind of language, you actually stop them being more courageous in doing more of those things. So it's better to praise effort rather than results. And so that's that. But I was going to dive in somewhere else then, but that basically is the difference. A growth mindset individual will see challenges as an opportunity to learn. A fixed mindset will see challenges as something to be avoided at all costs.
Yeah. I kind of listening to you kind of explain that, I was thinking about a few years back when, my kids, who are much older now, there was a time when they would give medals out to the losers in football. Yeah. And it was trying to promote, it was trying to, encourage and motivate those that didn't win. And I had a bit of an issue with that at the time, thinking, well, hang on, what are you teaching these kids? And I think listening to what you were saying there, I'm thinking, well, there's a risk if you're rewarding children for not doing well, that you're creating, I think, what you're describing there, which is this idea that, well, even when I don't do well, I'm still doing a good job, so it's okay.
Yeah, I think you do see this in corporations actually, where you have the top performers who are like, oh, they're amazing, they're great, and everyone else is just a stat on a spreadsheet, is my term for it, you know. So they might know the A players in terms of sales, but they won't necessarily know the rest of the team, and that is a winners losers culture. Whereas in a growth mindset culture, everyone can be a winner. So a new person, so a new child in that football team can get a medal for some kind of effort that really stood out, as well as the person who scored all the goals. So they can give medals for any kind of good performance based on where that individual is.
Yeah.
So in a sales team, how that plays out is that someone who's only been with the company, say 3 months, they've got the biggest percentage growth in their sales. It doesn't mean they're at the top of the leaderboard, but they still, in terms of percentage growth, they've done a great thing. So everyone is recognized for improvement, for incremental growth, and that makes everybody feel like a winner.
Yeah. And I guess the same could be said for learning.
Yeah.
And an individual taking it upon themselves to learn new things. And I think, you know, that perhaps plays into what we all do. We all teach in some form or another in our respective roles. But Luke, I can't help but think, you know, with your role at Consalia and the great work that Consalia do to help others, that you might have a different perspective on a growth mindset in relation to learning versus performance, or not.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to like sales performance, we believe at Consalia that anyone can be a great salesperson with the right mindset. So that in itself is an evidence of growth mindset, isn't it? Because it's saying that regardless of the challenges that the salesperson's going to face, if they adopt the outstanding positive mindsets, which for Consalia are authenticity, so can you be an honest salesperson? Can you be someone that someone is going to trust? Can you be client-centric? Can you take an interest and actually want to research the client and understand more about them? And then we go further into proactive creativity. You use someone that can come up with ideas for the customer and suggest things that they haven't come up with before. And the final one is tactful audacity, which is being bold and actually challenging their thinking. So that implies that anyone can be a great salesperson if they apply the right mindset. So when presented with any sales challenge, they can be successful if they think about things in the right way.
Yeah.
And if they align their behavior in the right way to an opportunity.
Yeah, it's a really good point. You know, I've got 3 sons, 2 of which are in sales, and some of the conversations that we have are related to thinking about things differently. And I can't help but think that there are many salespeople out there that are feeling the same levels of stress as a result of not perhaps having the experience that the 3 of us might have, where we've had the luxury of building our resilience and our grit, as you say, Lee, over time, over several years. And we've sort of built that self-efficacy, that feeling of trying new things and knowing that there's always something else that we can try. And when we feel it works, then we add it to our, you know, to our bow, if you like, and we do more of it. But for many less experienced salespeople out there, they perhaps don't have that built in just yet, and they're stuck under that umbrella of stress because they're being told to perform, yet don't quite know how to perform or don't have the guidance from their leadership to brainstorm through these things and try, have the freedom to try new things. What advice would you have for those salespeople that are perhaps feeling that? I don't know who wants to go with that one first. But if there were one or two pieces of advice you could give to salespeople in that position, what would it be?
Well, this is something that I tackle in my day job all the time. And if we look at growth mindset specifically, there are 9 elements, but there are 3 elements of growth mindset that increase resilience. And I think that when somebody is struggling, just focusing on those 3 actually will develop more resilience to tackle the challenges that are very apparent in the sales sector. So in order to build resilience, you need to focus on these 3 things, and that is the attitude to feedback, failure, and growth. So attitude to feedback is seeking out feedback. Ask your leader, where am I doing well? What are the things that, I can focus on improving? What's the most important thing? So don't see feedback as a criticism that wounds you. Without this constructive feedback, you are never going to grow the things or the attributes, characteristics that lead to higher levels of resistance. So if you have a leader that isn't very approachable in this way, or doesn't give you feedback in a way that is easily received, find someone else in the organization. It may be a peer, they don't have to be your leader. Just find somebody that maybe can do a call with you and ask them what you did well and what you need to improve, and just see it as a game. It's like a computer game, really. Like you press that button and it works, you press that button and it doesn't work. So what you need to do is to figure out how to press the right button more times. So think of it as a game, because really that's all it is. It's a game that you're learning to master. So first of all, seek out feedback if you're not getting it already. And when you do get it, even if it's from someone who, giving feedback is not easy. So please forgive the person who gives you the feedback. And if they're really bad at giving feedback, walk away, and always remember that that's their feedback and their perspective. You do not have to accept it, but if you read between the lines and go, where could this be true, then you'll get that nugget. But they might be wrong. That's the thing with feedback. They might not actually be right. So feedback is the first thing. Then failure. Every time something doesn't go the way you plan, take 10 minutes afterwards and go, okay, what would I need to do differently next time? And just make a list of things that you will do differently with hindsight, because, hindsight's a wonderful thing. But when you're in the moment, you're in the moment, and there's all kinds of other things happening. So afterwards, take those precious 10 minutes, not to beat yourself up, but to go, okay, so what would I do differently? Practice it in your mind. What would I do differently? What point did the customer seem to check out? What happened at that moment? Ask yourself those challenging questions. So that's feedback and failure. And finally, growth. When you can't do something, the only way you're going to be able to do that thing is through purposeful practice. So like I shared earlier, what would be the first step? And then keep doing it till you've mastered that. Then what's the second step? And then add that to the mix and keep doing it till you've mastered that. You are not going to get it right first time. No one does. And everything that you're really good at right now, you did for the first time at one point in your life. And now you think it's easy. That's exactly what growth is like.
Yeah. Yeah, some great advice. Quite often it's just about putting one foot in front of the other until you get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But knowing why, having an outcome for each foot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not just walking into the wilderness.
Yeah. There's a sketch I have sort of in my mind's eye. I'm visualizing where there's two miners. They're both hacking away. Underground. You can see them, and one is just going for it, and he just keeps going, and the other just decides to give up without knowing that he's millimeters away from the diamonds.
Yeah, I've seen that. Seen that. It's true in life, isn't it? It's just true in life.
It is. Luke, how about you?
Yeah, building resilience. For me, the first thing I want to talk about is having a good relationship with your manager as a salesperson. If I approach everything in sales as I, then I'm working on my own. I'm solo. I'm a lone wolf. I win opportunities or I lose opportunities. I face rejection or I get acceptance. All this sort of stuff. It's on my own. But being solo, you're in a very vulnerable position. It's fine to be the lone wolf when you're doing really well, and sometimes there can be a temptation. Certainly, I've had that temptation in the past to want to take all the glory on myself. So when things go well, I want to have my name against all the opportunities in the sales force, and so forth. I want to take all the glory, all of the plaudits for those opportunities. But for me, it's better to operate as a we. So if I've got a better relationship with my sales manager, then we win and lose together. So when the tough times come along, and that's when I really need resilience, then I'm operating as a pair at the very least. I might include other team members in that as well. So my advice to a salesperson is being a lone wolf isn't very effective, and will probably put you under more stress. If we link back to the theme of the podcast. So it can be all well and good operating as a lone wolf. Some people might prefer it. I've certainly wanted to be that in the past. But it doesn't help when the tough times come along.
Yeah.
And the other thing is kind of like it's to build resilience. It's all about connections. So that's one of the 5 ways to well-being is to connect with other people. For me, that comes from connecting with either people at Consalia who I work with, but it might also be with a mentor or a friend. So I've had a it's probably more of a friendship now, to tell you the truth, but I've had a mentor for around 6 years now. I say it's more of a friendship now because he asked me to be his best man, which is quite cool.
Nice.
Yeah, it's quite nice. It started off as like my old sales manager at Royal Mail called Fran. She said, go out and pick someone to be your mentor.
Yeah.
It blossomed into a friendship, but I always still think of it as mentorship because we meet up probably for coffee once a week. And that's the time when I'm building up my resilience with all of the feedback and advice that I'm getting from him.
Yeah.
And so I'd always say to salespeople, especially if you're in a role like I am, which is business development. So if you're in a role that's new business, it can be really lonely because if you're an account manager, you have your existing accounts that you work with. Of course, by the way, you face your own challenges. I'm not demeaning account management, but new business is a completely lonely place. So you need those friends around you. So that's why, for me personally, having a good mentor, having good colleagues, having a strong manager that I can share my problems with, that's how I'm resilient. And instead of being solo, I'm operating as a we rather than an I.
Yeah, I love that because there's selling is a team sport, really, when you think about it. We in sales can't sell unless we have the support, especially if we're representing a company, of course. I'm not talking about a single consultant, but if we're selling to a company, representing a company, it's really a team sport. You need the support of those people around you. And if all you do as a salesperson is blow your own trumpet, you lose the support of those people around you. So, my experience of that, and I used to have a manager that used to tell me, when I wanted kudos, he would say to me, "Well, you get paid the commission. The kudos goes to the team."
Nice, that's nice. That sounds like a good leader.
Yeah, a very good leader. He was one of a few leaders that I would consider, who was my manager, my direct manager, that I would consider as a true leader. That was also a combination of my manager, who was a true leader, but also was a mentor and a coach, depending on the situation. And helped me grow into a leader myself, which was a tough transition, even with a strong leader like that. But for many, it's an impossible transition to make.
Yeah,
I think that for me triggers a thought in relation to some of the work that Jeff Risley has done at the Sales Health Alliance. When we think about how many salespeople that are stressed, but also in sales, of course, and how many sales leaders are stressed. And the latest research that he has done earlier this year, that came out, I think, 6 weeks or so ago, has found that now 70% of salespeople are highly stressed in their role, and a very similar number for sales leaders. And, I can't help but think that that's an industry-wide problem. Businesses, leaders are forcing salespeople to work in perhaps ways that no longer work or are as effective as they once were, because, they don't know what to do. We talk about building this grit. The sales leadership has this grit. Leaders above sales leaders have this grit. And they just expect salespeople to do more and deliver more.
Or do they? I don't believe that all sales leaders do have that grit, because there will be some sales leaders that have that grit, and others that are in that position purely because they were an A player. Salesperson who actually are not leaders at all. And because it's a completely different set of skills, and it's not their fault, but they probably haven't had the development they need to understand what it takes to lead a group of people who are not like them. And I speak as someone who has experienced that.
Yeah.
Why don't they just do it? I used to think. It sent me down a path to understand why that was. So, but there will be A players who think this is I just can't get good staff. They'll be blaming the salespeople, and that leads to some very challenging relationships and challenging behaviours. So I don't believe all sales leaders have got grit. I think at every level, you'll have some people that have it, like I would say the top 10%, and then the rest will have a blend of fixed and growth.
Yeah.
So that's my experience working across all sectors in this, in sales.
Yeah. I did a podcast with Dr. Grant Van Ulbrich some weeks ago, and we were talking about the difference between transactional leadership and transformational leadership. And the transformational leader will be looking at how they can grow their team and help get the most out of their team, versus the transactional leader who is more directive, telling just do it and expecting more. Let's talk about how you deal with that stress then. So and given that it's Mental Health Week in the UK and the topic is about activity, what do you both do? What activities do you both do that helps alleviate the stress that you deal with on a daily basis? And thinking about those salespeople that might have that transactional leader and are just being told to do more with less. What can they do to help alleviate some of that stress? But I'd love to hear your stories. What do you guys do? Luke, tell us about your how did you describe it? Your meditative cricket.
Meditative cricket, yeah. Well, yeah. So for context, meditative cricket is being a non-aggressive batsman and just enjoying the time I'm out in the middle. Yeah. So my first love is cricket outside of work. A lot of things I love about cricket, firstly, it's in the summer. I think I have, and I know a lot of people have a bit of that seasonal affective disorder. I don't know anyone who prefers the winter, really. So
it's why I moved to Portugal.
yeah, exactly. Get a bit of sun, and although British weather is unpredictable, generally speaking, cricket is played in the sunshine, and. I'm what's known as a cricket badger. The cricket badger is someone who just loves cricket, just loves the experience of being at cricket. Not necessarily competitive. I do play league cricket on a Saturday, but I don't take myself too seriously. We play quite a low standard. So if I was taking myself seriously, I'd have questions to answer.
Yeah.
But yeah, meditative cricket is kind of like meditation is to bring you into the present, to avoid the fear or worry of the past or the future. That's my definition of meditation. So meditative cricket is being in that state of almost a Zen state at cricket all day long. I love the connecting with other people. I'm getting to be active. Because it's a lower level recreational sport, we have to sort of do jobs around the club to sort of keep it going. So there's always a bit of giving to others back. And yeah, it's just a wonderful experience.
Yeah.
Do
you ever find you get in the zone, right? There's nothing that you couldn't do there's nothing, you're hitting fours, everything's working for you.
I wish it was always like that. To be honest, it's in terms of my performance, it's probably only like that 4 or 5 times in an entire summer. Okay. But do you know what? Like linking it back to sales, right? I could be, let's say, get to Friday afternoon. I might be stressed about performance against target. Or a bit of anxiety about what prospects think of me, or whatever's causing stress, maybe a bit of rejection. But I can close the lid on that laptop, enjoy my Friday night, forget about work, and then I play cricket Saturday and Sunday. And I couldn't give a monkeys about what's happening in my pipeline for the whole weekend, because it really does help me switch off. And I think that's one of the luxuries of cricket is the duration. Some people don't like the fact that you have to give up your whole day or you'll give up your whole weekend. For me, it's the opposite. It's a blessing that I get to enjoy the whole weekend playing cricket, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and really do get to switch off.
Nice. And do you find that there are parallels between cricket and business or cricket and sales?
Oh, that's a good question. You certainly have to be patient as a batsman.
Yeah.
You certainly have to focus. If you're not focused on what the bowler's doing, then you're probably going to miss the ball. Yeah. Patience for me as a non-aggressive batsman is one of the key things.
Yeah.
But you know what? I would say actually the beauty of it is there are almost no parallels in a way. You could probably draw some parallels, but the beauty of it is there are almost no parallels to my day job. I forget about it a lot, to be honest, and that's what I love about it so much. It's such a unique sport, that it's something completely different to what I do on a Monday to Friday 9 till 5.
Yeah, nice. So replay one of the better moments you've had this year. You're probably early into the season, but
I scored a 50 last weekend on Sunday. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. No, that was good.
When that happens, the crowd claps you, and you salute the crowd, right?
Yeah, you're supposed to salute. I don't think there was much of a crowd, to be honest. A very friendly Sunday cricket game. But do you know what? It was nice because I played badly on the Saturday, and I sort of corrected what I got wrong on the Saturday on the Sunday. So there's some sort of parallels to business. If you're looking at your the sales calls you're making or the messages you're sending out, are you reviewing what you're doing? Are you reflecting in action and changing what you need to do? And that's what I did on Sunday.
Nice. Good. So Lee, tell us about what you do to alleviate the stress.
Okay, so whenever I'm a bit stressed, I think people can feel it because their nervous system starts getting a bit agitated on the inside, and in the course of my work, I have learned about something called the stress cup, and everyone has a stress cup, and everyone has different sizes stress cup depending on how much capacity they have to deal with stress. So some people have a really big one, and some people will have like a little small one. But every day when you wake up, it starts dripping, like think of it as a liquid starting to drip into your stress cup. If you're woken out of your slumber by an alarm, that's the first drip, and as things happen during the day, it's dripping, and when you get to 50%, you can start feeling that anxiety in your body. When you get to 75%, everyone else knows, even if you think you're hiding it. When you get to 100%, that's like burnout territory, and you don't even realize you're heading towards it because that way of living has become normal. But whenever there are ways of emptying that stress cup, and I try to do as many of these things that empty your stress cup as possible. So my favourites are walking in nature. I live opposite Epping Forest, so I try to do that as much as I can. So walking in nature without any tech. I'll carry my phone around with me in case I need to refer to a map because I'm lost, or I need to call anyone because there's some kind of emergency. But it stays in my bag, and I just listen. And you talked about presence, Luke. Presence is absolutely crucial in emptying your stress cup and calming that nervous system down. And so being in the forest for me is one, and I do that at least 4 times a week. Exercise is another, and I do that 4 times a week as well. And it doesn't matter what exercise you do. It can be strenuous, it can be easy, it can be weights, it can, but certainly I go to the gym every other day, and I do what I feel that I'm able to do that day.
Yeah.
Even while still trying to progress. If I'm feeling tired, I'll do less.
Yeah. You do something you told me about a couple of weeks ago, the grip hang or something.
Oh, yes. Well, I learned last year that as you get older, your hands lose the ability to grip. Yeah. And so one of the things I started doing last year is pull-ups and dead hang. So a dead hang is like when you're hanging on a bar and you just hang there, and your grip is actually holding your entire body weight. So I can do that for 90 seconds now. It's not easy, but I can do it for 90 seconds, and I'm up to 5 pull-ups. I find them so hard, but I keep like plugging away. So
is that like a 50 in cricket?
Yeah.
It feels like I feel very victorious when I've done 5. And each time I get to the next one, that's like a big day for me.
Nice.
So
Because genetically, like some people, I think, find it easier to do pull-ups than others. I think there's something genetically that impacts how easy it is for us.
Well, it also depends on grip. So a neutral grip is much, much easier. Gripping a bar, like just slightly wider than shoulder, is harder because it uses different muscles. So it will depend where you have muscle strength already. Yeah. So anyway, so we have walking in the forest, gym, drinking as much water as possible, because our bodies are 70% water. When you're dehydrated, your nervous system will start to be impacted. It impacts all your major organs like your brain. And so, you know, concentration goes down when you're dehydrated. So drink plenty of water. I eat as healthy a diet as I can. Do I eat cake sometimes? Yeah, of course I eat cake sometimes. You still have to have a life, but not 90% of the time I eat healthily and I don't eat too late. And I avoid alcohol. So because alcohol is a stimulant, like coffee is a stimulant. So all of these will stimulate your nervous system to increase anxiety. So I think, being present, meditation, if you can do it, great, keep on doing it, or mindfulness, stuff like that. But when people say, I can't meditate, I say to them, can you look out the window or sit in your garden with a cuppa and just watch the sky or watch the trees or, you know, watch the birds? And they go, oh yeah. And I go, that's meditation. Just do 1 minute in the morning and 1 minute at night, you know, and just start with that. Yeah. If you can do that for 1 minute, that is meditation. And when that's really easy, just do 2 minutes and then 3. And eventually you'll be, you know, it's a kind of contemplation and being present with what is. So meditation and any kind of spiritual practice. So yeah. I think that's all of it.
Yeah, brilliant.
I'll try and do as many of those as possible. Oh, the other thing with water is if you are very, very stressed, get in a bath. Because that immediate 20 minutes in a warm bath actually calms your nervous system down.
Nice. Okay. And if you don't have a bath, a shower?
Shower is fine, yeah. But it's like, but because our bodies have such a high content of water, water actually relaxes the nervous system.
Yeah. Fantastic. And what about your hiking? Tell us about this this hike, this trip that you do, this 10-mile walk.
Oh, yes. So I watched this documentary about 3 years ago. It was a Chris Packham documentary about the walk that saved him. And he's walking around with this 360 camera. And he starts off at Eastleigh and he joins the River Itchen and he walks all the way to Winchester Cathedral. And like, me and a friend like watched this documentary. I went, I really want to do that. I really want to do that walk. So we watched it a few times, figured out the route, and then we went and did it at exactly the same time he did it, which was early spring. And then we did it again last year, and we're doing it again this year. So we're getting to Eastleigh in the morning, and we're going to walk to Winchester Cathedral, then have dinner in a pub, and then so things like that. And you do actually, there's this, I think it's called St. Mary's Hill, just before you get into Winchester, and it's an old fort. You climb to the top of it. And when you sit there, there's like, it must be on a ley line or something, because it's just got an incredible, you feel a kind of energy. And I remember sitting up there and I said to Paul, can you feel that? He went, yeah. He said, I can. And he's not spiritual in any way. Yeah. And so there's like really nice things to do along the way. So that will be a whole day of hiking and relaxing and being in nature.
Lovely. It sounds wonderful. And when you're doing this trip again soon?
Yeah, I'm doing it on Sunday.
You are doing it on Sunday. How many times have you done it?
This will be the 3rd time. It's become an annual pilgrimage.
Yeah, I feel there's potentially a LinkedIn post opportunity for next week.
Yes, for sure. I'll have to take some pictures. The thing is that when I'm in it, I never think to take pictures, and I get to the end and go, oh, I should have taken a picture.
Yeah. Brilliant. So we're almost coming to the end. I think some final thoughts I'd like to leave with everyone is in relation to overcoming fear of failure, right? So when there's a stressful environment, typically it isn't the time to try new things. But what advice have you got for our viewers that might fear failure and kind of allow that sort of paralysis? I think you mentioned it early on, Lee, about stress sort of paralyzing you. You know, when that's happening, or there's a high stress situation, you know, what advice have you got for our audience in terms of overcoming that fear of failure?
Well, it's first of all, it's really natural to have some fear of failure. You know, if we didn't fear failure, we wouldn't strive to not fail and or to get out of danger. So no, there's nothing wrong with you if it's under control. But when it's excessive, if you have a fear of failure and it's keeping you awake at night, then the thing to do is a really practical thing is to think, okay, so is there anything I can do now to change? So if it's like you haven't got your target, Luke mentioned that a couple of times, and people get, if you lose a deal, that kind of thing, is like, first, while you're in it, just do as much as you can to take steps towards trying to alleviate or lessen the failure. Because in that action, you are actually more empowered. You feel that you're actually doing something to stop that, rather than being paralyzed by that. So just jot down, spend 10 minutes. What are the things that I can do between now and the end of my target period? Or what can I do now with this particular account, or whatever it is? What are the things that are in my control that I can do? So if a customer says no, then they've gone somewhere else. That's out of your control, but you can then go, okay, so what would I do differently next time? So the fear of failure is normal, but you just have to get it under control by going, what is in my control and what is outside of my control that I have no control over. And in doing that, you are able to let go of stuff that is nothing to do with you. It's never been anything to do with you. You can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Just focus on what you can do. And if ultimately things don't go the way as planned, you take time to jot down what you would do differently and write down what the next action point is that you would take the next time you're in that situation. So it might be that you split if you've got a quarterly target, it might be that you split your target into months or even weeks, or if depending on what you sell, even days, because that will lessen the pressure when you get to the end of that time period and you haven't got where you need to be. You know, that's been transformative with some sales teams that I've worked with, like people who just get really stressed at the end of the period. So just see everything as an opportunity. You failed. There's nothing you can do about it. It's gone. It's done. But don't waste that experience. Don't waste it by not diving in and going, what did I do that could have been done better? What did I do that was great that I should have done more of? You know, ask yourself these questions. What will I do if I was doing that all again? Like, replay the whole thing. If I was doing that again, what were the things that I would change?
Yeah, brilliant. And Luke, finally, any final comments from you?
Well, yeah, I think in 9 times out of 10, fear is irrational. So first step you want to take is to quantify the situation. A little bit like Lee said with the circles of control, you know, what's in my power, what's not. Because immediately you can stop worrying about what's not in your control once you're crystal clear on that.
Yeah.
And it goes back to my other point about building resilience around fear, is that actually you need to build up a team around you. You know, if I was scared of the dark and I'm alone in a forest, I'm probably be more afraid than if I'm with 10 people in a dark forest. So it's important to have people around you to share that fear with, because I'm certainly less afraid when I'm not on my own.
Yeah, brilliant. Lee Ashton, thank you. Where can people find you if they want to learn more about Lee Ashton and the growth mindset?
You can find me on LinkedIn. I am very active on LinkedIn. I go into it every day, a number of times a day. I love it. And on my website, sales-consultancy.com.
Lovely. Thank you, Lee. And Luke Bowles, where can people find you if they're wanting to play cricket or wanting to learn about Consalia?
If they want to learn about Consalia, they can visit our website or they can find me on LinkedIn. We're active on LinkedIn as well, Consalia. And if they want to learn about cricket, I'm usually at Ensham Cricket Club most weekends. Trainings on a Wednesday night. So if you're based in Oxfordshire and you want to join a lovely village cricket team, come on down 6:30 every Wednesday.
Lovely. Well, thank you both. It was lovely to talk with you about such an important topic.
Yeah.
Thank you to our viewers. I hope you enjoyed the session. I wish you a great rest of week, and we'll see you next time on Sales TV. Bye-bye.
Bye.